Coming up on Market to Market, Mother Nature batters the Midwest with torrential rains and a string of lethal tornadoes. Further south, wheat producers contend with arid conditions reminiscent of the Dust Bowl. And we'll examine controversial laws that some believe restrict free speech down on the farm. Those stories and market analysis with Tomm Pfitzenmaier next.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by Grinnell Mutual. You think differently about a customer when you stand in the middle of his dreams. We work to make sure you get covered right. Grinnell Mutual, a policy of working together. Information on finding an agent near you is available at grinnellmutual.com. This is the Friday, June 20 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. Consumer prices rose in May as the cost of food and fuel increased significantly. The government's Consumer Price Index rose 0.4% last month, in its biggest jump since early 2013. Food costs increased by 0.5% last month, due largely to weather woes across the nation. Energy costs rose nearly 1% in May, in their largest gain since December. Stripping out the volatile food and energy sectors, so-called core inflation increased by 0.3% last month, but there were bigger rises in some sectors of the economy. Airline ticket prices, for example, rose 5.8% in May, in their biggest monthly spike in 15 years. The weather that has been pushing food prices higher in recent months refuses to let up. This week, Mother Nature continued to make her mark as arid conditions garnered headlines in the West and deadly tornadoes roared across the Corn Belt. Mother Nature took aim with both barrels this week, riddling several states with destructive weather. Parched landscapes fueled wildfires in the states of Arizona, New Mexico, California, and Washington. But as authorities wrestled with the infernos out west, drought conditions were effectively erased in portions of Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. A look at the University of Nebraska's drought monitor indicates significantly diminished intensity in recent weeks where the three Midwestern states intersect. Several days of thunderstorms have swollen waterways that crisscross the region. And the area has now seen the worst flooding since 2011, when the Missouri River remained high for months, backing up tributaries, testing the levee system, and swallowing up valuable farmland.
Here goes our dock.
Parts of the Hawkeye State have received more than a foot of rain over the past week, and there have been unofficial reports of up to 20 inches in just a few days.
That is violent.
Yeah, they're both violent.
They're merging. They're going to merge.
It sounded like a freight train going through the house. Heard wood splintering, nails being torn out of boards.
In neighboring Nebraska, a state of emergency was declared after a storm packing rare dual tornadoes decimated a small farming community, killing one adult and a small child. The twin twisters crumpled grain bins and flattened dozens of homes, prompting officials to estimate up to 75% of the town of Pilger was heavily damaged or destroyed. Amidst the ruins, however, residents remain hopeful.
I know Nebraskans, we're resilient, we're going to rebuild. Yep. This town's too tough to die, right?
Yeah, amen to that. Amen. We have a good little town here. We do. Very good. We'll come back. Yes.
As if adding insult to injury, another set of dual tornadoes was spotted days later, rotating around the community of Crow Lake, South Dakota. And a separate funnel, with winds peaking at 125 miles per hour, ripped through the heart of nearby Wessington Springs, destroying businesses and homes in its path.
It was loud. The wind that kept going, we were hearing glass that was crashing. I mean, we were hearing things that were hitting the house. It was just this loud, whirling noise. It's so eerie to hear that.
In the wake of this week's storms, flooding on the Big Sioux River prompted residents in 3 states to hurriedly prepare for rising water. The Big Sioux was expected to crest Friday more than a foot above the previous record level set in 1969, threatening homes and businesses in Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. Further south in wheat country, the problem is too little moisture. And in Oklahoma, where the winds come sweeping down the plain, The gusts, unfortunately, haven't been accompanied by timely rain.
The waving wheat is not as sweet this year in Oklahoma. Too little rain and late frigid temperatures stunted what the USDA says is likely the Sooner State's smallest crop in more than 50 years.
The drought and the freezes that we've had has just pretty well devastated everything. I don't think I've ever had wheat this thin before, but it's just a pretty dismal situation.
Don Schieber farms more than 900 acres near the north central Oklahoma town of Ponca City and chairs the Oklahoma Wheat Commission. USDA's latest series of crop reports indicate nearly half of the Oklahoma wheat crop is in the bin. But yields are way below normal and could result in the smallest harvest since 1957. This year's production of red winter wheat is likely going to be half the size of last year's bounty of 115 million bushels.
Everybody's lost all their excitement about this year's wheat crop. You know, it usually gets pretty exciting around wheat harvest, but, you know, we just want to get it over with and move on and put this one in the record books way deep and forget it. And then I think most of us, if we need to go to the bank, are going to have to buy some knee pads when we go visit our bankers.
Much of Oklahoma has been locked in drought for months. Recent rains have eased the dry conditions somewhat, but arrive too late to help the winter wheat.
And all that's doing is delaying the misery.
While machines roll through Oklahoma, further north in the wheat belt, Kansas producers play the waiting game.
It's getting close.
The diagnosis for Kansas wheat is a little better. According to USDA, the nation's biggest producer of wheat has 37% of its crop in fair to excellent condition, compared to Oklahoma's 24%.
It's going to be a pretty short year wheat-wise in the state of Kansas. We had some issues with winter kill. There's a lot of fields that have thin spots and a lot of places that are still green that the wheat tried to come up late, and it's not going to be very good. We're not going to have a great harvest, but at least it kind of looks like wheat now.
Central Kansas wheat producer Ken Wood now says recent rains have left a mark on local fields in the sunflower state.
In the last 2 weeks, we've had about 8 inches here, which is, you know, probably a fourth or so of our annual rainfall. And when you get that fast, yeah, you hate to complain about rain, but yet it's not doing us much good for the wheat, especially now. It's we need to have it dry out so we can get in and get some harvesting done.
Wood, who serves on the board of the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers, says the entire state will be off normal production marks, but in one particular corner, the situation is reminiscent of the 1930s.
A lot of those guys are looking at 4 or 5 years of drought, and, you know, really probably as bad in some cases as what the Dust Bowl was. It's just the farming practices are not the same as they were back in the 30s. But from strictly a precipitation standpoint in southwest Kansas, they're probably at least as dry as they were in the 30s.
For Market to Market, I'm Paul Yeager.
Animal welfare activists called for criminal charges to be filed this week against 8 employees of a Canadian company after an undercover video revealed graphic animal abuse at a dairy in British Columbia. A hidden camera investigation conducted by Mercy for Animals Canada allegedly showed workers kicking and punching the animals and beating them with metal objects. Virtually no one condones such behavior, but the issue of workers gaining access to livestock operations under false pretenses and gathering video covertly has proven to be no less contentious. David Miller examined a controversial law in Iowa designed to keep the livestock producers themselves from being victimized. And we caution, the following segment contains video you may find disturbing.
The hidden camera and concealed microphone have long been tools of television funny men, security-minded homeowners, and clandestine operatives in foreign lands. They are also valuable tools for undercover activists seeking to shine the light of day on illicit activities in otherwise unseen locations, or some say to stage an event to give the appearance of wrongdoing when in actuality no crime is being committed. In few places has the argument drawn more attention than the legal and media battlegrounds populated by animal rights activists and U.S. livestock producers. Hybrid Turkeys in Ontario, Weiss Brothers Farms in Wisconsin, Tyson Pork Group in Oklahoma, and Pipestone Systems in Minnesota are a few of the animal processors activists have targeted in the past year. The attention-grabbing, graphic undercover videos produced by activists are distributed through traditional and social media, sometimes to devastating effect to the industry. Emily Meredith is a spokesperson for the Animal Agriculture Alliance, a nonprofit organization based in Washington which champions causes dear to livestock and poultry producers.
These activist groups use these videos for fundraising. They use these videos to advance their agendas to end animal agriculture. And so the reason this legislation is so upsetting to them is because it's going to curb them from doing what they want to do and from using this footage for their agenda to advance their disingenuous agenda.
In 2002, model legislation was introduced by the American Legislative Exchange Council. Known as ALEC, the council is made up of state legislators and business executives that craft policy to run at the state level. Known as the Animal and Ecological Terrorism Act, the bill would make it a crime to gather film or videotape surreptitiously at livestock production facilities. Lawmakers supporting the legislation began introducing versions of the Animal and Ecological Terrorism Act in several states, and by 2011, the legislation had drawn the attention of New York Times food columnist Mark Bittman, who coined the term ag-gag. Around that same time, supporters of ag-gag laws were making headway in several states across the country. Iowa passed the first one, followed by states like Utah, South Carolina, and Idaho.
I call it the Ag Protection Bill. It's been called the Ag-Gag Bill or Ag Terrorism Bill. I think ag protection is the main focus of the bill. I really think it's an attempt to protect agriculture but not have any subversive acts by groups trying to bring down an industry actually of their own making within that facility.
However, what state legislators have seen as a way to protect their constituents has been characterized by animal rights groups as governmental overreach. Paul Shapiro is Vice President of Farm Animal Protection for the Humane Society of the United States.
Americans deserve to know the truth about where their food is coming from and how it's produced. When those in the meat industry who argue for ag-gag laws want to suppress whistleblowers, it becomes even clearer just how desperate this industry is to hide its standard practices from the American people.
These are arguments repeated in legislatures across the country. Jared Goodman is the director of animal law at People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Sworn enemy of most farmers and ranchers, PETA is part of a coalition which filed a federal lawsuit against ag-gag laws in Utah and Idaho.
The public has the right to know what is going on behind closed doors at these factory farms. At the very least, they should be able to make an informed decision given all of the information on what they'd like to spend their money on. And we're confident, and we believe that this is why the industry is so opposed to undercover investigations, that once people learn of all of the inherent abuse, that they're going to decide not to buy these products anymore.
The dispute evokes memories of Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, which documented sanitary shortcomings in the American meatpacking industry at the dawn of the 20th century. Sinclair's muckraking literary work exposed many Americans to deplorable working conditions in the Chicago stockyards and prompted Congress to pass the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, the precursor to the modern-day Food and Drug Administration. But Meredith of the Animal Agricultural Alliance says that's romanticizing a political ideology that's harming a vital part of the agriculture industry.
Most of these farms that I know that are members of ours, they want consumers to come and learn and embrace the farm. They want consumers to understand what they're doing on the farm, how they're raising animals, because they're proud of what they do. The most crucial piece of oversight that's really in place is that these animals are a farmer's and a rancher's bottom line. Not only are they going to ensure that those animals are treated properly, but they're going to ensure that they're producing the safest and most wholesome product they can, because that's how they keep their business in operation. That's how they sustain their business from year to year and pass that on from generation to generation.
Goodman, on the other hand, says the industry should welcome cameras, not ban them. Otherwise, it looks like the industry is hiding something. And as for political ideology, he says that's beside the point.
There could be various motives for conducting an undercover investigation. This isn't just about animal rights and cruelty to animals on factory farms. It prevents anyone from exposing cruelty to animals, poor working conditions, and food safety issues.
Still, some states have been able to avoid legal challenges, at least so far, because local laws don't directly challenge the ability of people to report what occurs on farming facilities. Instead, those states ramp up punishments for people who lie on employment applications that get them access to private facilities. This was the route taken in Iowa, the nation's top hog-producing state. Lawmakers rejected early versions of Iowa's ag-gag proposal because they felt they were overreaching and stifled free speech. Goodman says the practical effect is similar, but it's more difficult to put up a constitutional challenge. While ag-gag laws in other states are being challenged, Iowa's ag-gag law thus far has not faced any legal opposition. Experts, however, say it's only a matter of time before the courts decide once and for all if there is any room for undercover cameras down on the farm. For Market to Market, I'm David Miller.
Next, the Market to Market report.
Grain prices pulled back from a midweek rally that was spurred by reports of flooding and inclement weather in parts of the Corn Belt. For the week, July wheat lost less than a penny, while the nearby corn contract moved 6 cents higher. Despite following the weather rally, the July soybean contract settled with a weekly loss of 10 cents. Nearby meal prices followed suit, giving up $8.70 per ton. In the softs, cotton added to last week's gain as the July contract rose $1.18 per hundredweight. In the dairy market, July Class 3 milk gained 62 cents, while the deferred contract improved by 68. After several weeks of all-time highs, the August cattle contract fell a little more than half a dollar. August feeders followed the trend and declined by $1.28, and the July lean hog contract added to its 3-week rally with a gain of more than 80 cents. In the financials, the euro lost 6 basis points against the dollar. August crude oil prices hit a 9-month high with a gain of 66 cents per barrel. COMEX gold advanced by $39.70 per ounce, and the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index gained nearly 9 points to settle at 668.95. Here now to lend us his insight on these and other topics is one of our regular market analysts, Tomm Pfitzenmaier. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike.
We just saw the piece in Oklahoma on wheat country, and we've seen wheat remain a little bit stable, slightly range-bound. Where do you see this market headed here over the next week?
Well, the problem with those poor guys, they've got not a very good wheat crop. We've kind of been talking about that all winter. The problem is the whole world does. There's a lot of wheat. We've depressed wheat prices fairly hard. They started to come back a little bit this week. And I think if you have a little more recovery in the corn, you could have some up in the wheat, but I really think it's going to be pretty minimal, especially in the harvest. Even if harvest isn't great, at harvest time it's hard to rally any of these markets, really.
Any price points out there that look appetizing for folks to make some sales?
Oh, I think anything a dime above where we're at today is upside is there, but it's pretty limited.
Pretty limited.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now let's jump over to the corn market. We did see a little bit of a rally this week, predominantly because of the weather events. Is that what the market's believing?
I think that's triggered. I think that's what triggered it. I think it's also a function of the fact that we dropped 80-some cents in corn and it got very oversold. Found support on that July 10th low on the December contract at 535, 536, and then we had that extreme wet weather, in northwest Iowa, western Minnesota, that kind of got everybody excited. I don't think that's anything to get too carried away with, because that also gave rain to all the other areas and just puts us in really good shape going into that July period, which is so critical. Now, June's the wettest month of our production year anyway, so a little excess moisture here and there probably isn't terrible. And like your report at the beginning of the show said, it kind of eliminated some of the drought problems and poor subsoil and moisture in a lot of areas. So I really think the upside here is somewhat limited. Like I said in the wheat, maybe you could rally a dime, take these corn up in that 455, 458 area. It's going to take something substantially worse than what we've seen to make it go a lot more than that. And I know everybody says, well, the crop condition rating's high, and so it can't do anything but go low. Well, it always goes lower. I mean, you ding the crop up. Those guys up in northwest Iowa, their crop got dinged up a little bit. That's what happens every year. You start getting into pollination, and somebody has a problem. It is a bit of a beauty contest, so you get into August and September, the leaves brown, and things just don't look as, I mean, they look awesome in the third week of June every year. They're just dark green, it's growing, everything's great. So you lose a little. It doesn't necessarily mean the yield's going to be terrible.
All right.
And I've had some people speculate, well, we don't have as great a crop prospects, and it's not tied to crop condition rate. Well, that's true, but I'd rather start off with a great crop than a poor crop. So you take it from there.
Well, and we've got a question from Tim in Crookston, Minnesota, tweeted to us, and it's a question I'm sure a lot of folks have. He says, I still have half of my old crop corn to sell. What are you looking at on old crop corn?
A ton of people still have old crop corn to sell. And it's been a mistake to hold it. We had that big run up, that really nice run up there in that April-May time frame. Everybody knew we had plenty of corn. I mean, it wasn't like we were running out. We went from 1.3 billion down to 1.1 billion. It's still a heck of a lot of corn, too much corn. So you got to use those rallies to make sales. Now you've got yourself in a hole. Now you're looking at, if I can get 10 or 15 cents, I'm going to have to sell it because the bin's sitting there full. You got a huge crop coming. Something's going to have to give here. The export demand hasn't been that great. We had the lowest export sales for old crop we've seen in quite a while, and we're lagging way behind last year on new crop sales. So there's a lot of corn. Maybe the stocks report's going to help a little bit. I doubt it. So I don't know. I guess if you've horsed around this long, maybe you've got a better plan, but I don't know why you'd hold it.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the soybean market. Saw it continue to spread this week, down 10 in the nearby, up 10 in the new crop. New crop-wise, where do you see us going from here?
Nowhere but down. I don't know why that thing's up. The only reason that's up is because everybody and their brother's been long July because we're going to run out of beans. Well, we're not running out of beans. The basis is way wider than it was a year ago, so obviously the people that are end users aren't that concerned about it. We have export sales, old crop, that are bigger than we need, and yet the market goes down. We have crush up, and which should be bullish. The market goes down. So to me, you're getting positive news. The market's reacting negatively. So I got all these people along the July being forced out. They've had the July nose bean spread on. So as they get out of the July, it's kicking that November back up and given an opportunity to make new crop sales. We're going to have a lot of beans. South America still got beans to sell. Well, exports there are lagging way behind. China's lagging way behind. We're being set up here with a great opportunity to sell new crop beans in this 12.20 to 12.35 range. You need to get some sales made and take advantage of it because it's probably not going to last.
Get in there and make some sales.
Yes.
Let's jump over to the livestock market. We had a cattle on feed report out today. Anything earth-shaking in that report?
It came in almost virtually identical with average trade guesses. So placements were down a little bit. Everybody expected that. Cattle on feed down a couple percent. Expected. Marketing's down, expected. So we got generally friendly numbers, but we're at very high levels. So that's the question. Can we sustain this? Are the futures going to match that 149 to 150 level that the cash is trading at? That's, we got June going off the board here in a couple weeks. You assume that's going to stay well supported. Is our October and August going to build on that? Now, you kind of worry about demand, but exports have been really good on pork and beef, so that side of it has held up fairly well. The consumer up to this point has hung in there fairly well, so I guess you'd have to say, unless some big surprise comes along here, you're going to keep cattle up in that 145 to 150 range.
And on the feeder cattle side, we're sticking between that 2 to 210 mark. Do we see that continuing?
I think it probably will unless corn starts to break down and make new lows, or cattle run up in that 155, that's not a projection, but if that would happen, then I think you could add some to the feeder market. The one thing I'm starting to see over the last week or two is the bankers are starting to there's some resistance coming for guys wanting to pay up for these high-priced feeders, and that may be one of the things that starts to kind of throttle that thing back a little bit. I mean, 2.5 to 2.10. It's a pretty fancy price.
Fancy price at the sale barn, and then you add trucking and freight and everything, and
yeah, there's not a lot left.
Right. Let's take a look over at the hog market. We did see the rally continue this week in the hog market. Are we on to technical buying now, or is it fundamental driven?
Yeah, that's something everybody would like to know. I mean, partially hogs are being pulled up by the perception that this PED problem is so huge. Well, the problem with that is weights are up and the tonnage isn't up all that much, and still we've had a fairly stout hog market. So you got to say, well, why is that? And one of the main explanations in my mind is that cattle prices are so high, beef so high, it's really benefiting the pork industry and helping support it. Now, we did kind of cram those prices down pretty hard over the last couple weeks. It came roaring right back up, and I think if beef prices hold up, pork prices are going to too.
We'll see some stability in that market.
Every month we think, oh, this is the month that PED is going, and then, well, maybe next month we're going to see the tonnage drop, and it just keeps getting pushed down, and it hasn't happened yet. And pork producers have reacted like you would expect them to. They put more weight on.
That's right. Well, Tom, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us this weekend.
All right, thanks, Mike.
That wraps up this edition of Market to Market. But Tom and I will continue our discussion and answer some of your questions in our Market Plus segment online. You'll also find audio podcasts and streaming video of our program, as well as links to our Twitter feed, Facebook page, and the rest of our social media outlets exclusively at the Market to Market website. And be sure to join us next week when we'll examine an innovative plan to improve beef genetics. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Market to Market is provided by Grinnell Mutual. You think differently about a customer when you stand in the middle of his dreams. We work to make sure you get covered right. Grinnell Mutual, a policy of working together. Information on finding an agent near you is available at grinnellmutual.com.